Section 1 of Chapter 20 of A History of England. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Richard Carpenter. History of England by Thomas Babington Macaulay. Chapter 20, Section 1. It is now time to relate the events which, since the Battle of La Hogue, had taken place at Saint-Germain. James, after seeing the fleet which was to have convoyed him back to his kingdom burned down to the water edge, had returned in no good humour to his abode near Paris. Misfortune generally made him devout after his own fashion, and he now starved himself and flogged himself till his spiritual guides were forced to interfere. It is difficult to conceive a duller place than Saint-Germain was when he held his court there, and yet there was scarcely in all Europe a residence more enviably situated than that which the generous Louis had assigned to his suppliants. The woods were magnificent, the air clear and salubrious, the prospects extensive and cheerful. No charm of rural life was wanting, and the towers of the most superb city of the continent were visible in the distance. The royal apartments were richly adorned with tapestry and marquetry, vases of silver, and mirrors in gilded frames. A pension of more than 40,000 pounds sterling was annually paid to James from the French treasury. He had a guard of honour composed of some of the finest soldiers in Europe. If he wished to amuse himself with field sports, he had at his command an establishment far more sumptuous than that which had belonged to him when he was at the head of a great kingdom. An army of huntsmen and fowlers, a vast arsenal of guns, spears, bugle-horns, and tents, miles of network, staghounds, foxhounds, harriers, packs of boar and packs of wolf, gerfalcons for the heron, and haggard for the wild duck. His presence chamber and his antechamber were in outward show as splendid as when he was at Whitehall. He was still surrounded by blue ribbons and white staves. But over the mansion and the domain brooded a constant gloom, the effect partly of bitter regrets and of deferred hopes, but chiefly of the abject superstition which had taken complete possession of his own mind, and which was affected by almost all those who aspired to his favour. His palace wore the aspect of a monastery. There were 3 places of worship within the spacious pile. 30 or 40 ecclesiastics were lodged in the building, and their apartments were eyed with envy by noblemen and gentlemen who had followed the fortunes of their sovereign, and who had thought it hard that, when there was so much room under his roof, they should be forced to sleep in the garrets of the neighbouring town. Among the murmurers was the brilliant Anthony Hamilton. He has left us a sketch of the life of Saint-Germain. A slight sketch indeed, but not unworthy to the artist to whom we owe the most highly finished and vividly coloured picture of the English court in the days when the English court was gayest. He complains that existence was one round of religious exercises, that in order to live in peace it was necessary to pass half the day in devotion or in an outward show of devotion, that if he tried to dissipate his melancholy by breathing the fresh air of that noble terrace which looks down the valley of the Seine, he was driven away by the clamour of a Jesuit who had got hold of some unfortunate Protestant royalists from England, and was proving to them that no heretic could go to heaven. In general, Hamilton said, men suffering under a common calamity have a strong fellow feeling, and are disposed to render good offices to each other. But it was not so at Saint-Germain. There all was discord, jealousy, bitterness of spirit. Malignity was concealed under the show of friendship and of piety. All the saints of the royal household were praying for each other and backbiting each other from morning to night. Here and there in the throng of hypocrites might be remarked a man too high-spirited to dissemble. But such a man, however advantageously he might have made himself known elsewhere, was certain to be treated with disdain by the inmates of that sullen abode. Such was the court of James as described by a Roman Catholic. Yet however disagreeable that court may have been to a Roman Catholic, it was infinitely more disagreeable to a Protestant. For the Protestant
Sample complete. Ready to continue?